All statements and opinions expressed by guests of the Adult in the Room podcast are strictly their own and do not necessarily reflect the beliefs or opinions of the host, producers, or advertisers. All interviews are presented in their most complete possible form in the interests of free speech. No statements should be interpreted as financial, legal, or medical advice. Listener and viewer discretion are strongly advised.
It's the Adult in the Room podcast with Victoria Taft. That's me. One of my favorite people is J. Christian Adams, President and General Counsel of the Public Interest Legal Foundation, a foundation that targets exclusively election law. J. Christian Adams, welcome back to the Adult in the Room podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great, Victoria. Thanks for having me.
I'm very happy to have you too. What happened? The U.S. Supreme Court decided to take a mail-in ballot case, and they will take it up next session. How important is this issue?
Well, it's so important that the Public Interest Legal Foundation brought a lawsuit in North Dakota to try to get this teed up too about a year ago, because the most destabilizing thing to American elections, in my view, is ballots coming in after the election and being counted and giving us endless delays in learning who won. Mm-hmm. So we sued in North Dakota because they take ballots there for, I think, 3 weeks. Maybe it's 13 days. I can't remember.
Wow.
And we said that that's a violation of this federal law. The federal judge in North Dakota said our client didn't have standing. We think he did. So we never got to run it up the flagpole. But this finally, we're going to have a decision on what does the federal statute say about when the election has to be over with.
And in the Constitution, it says that we have an election day. And even though a mail-in ballot, in this case that we're talking about, is comes into the post office, it's stamped and it's all ready to go and verified, you can still accept those ballots for 5 days. And it seems like, as you allude to, election day just keeps going on and on. We have a race I'm looking into, the Seattle mayor's race, and it's a week later and they haven't even counted 300,000 votes. It's just insane.
Yeah. So a couple things. It is a federal statute. It's a federal statute law, right? It's been passed as an act of Congress that it's election day. This Constitution is silent on when the election takes place. It just basically says Congress can decide this. And in late 1800s, Congress passed the statute, and then it was amended just like 2 years ago. And it says that the ballots have to be cast by election day. So the question becomes, what is cast? Victoria, it varies state by state. Some states don't allow any ballots to come in late, and states like North Dakota and Mississippi allow them to come in for weeks. So that's what the Supreme Court decision will clarify.
And it can be postmarked and all that. But how reliable is the U.S. Post Office at conducting chain of custody on elections?
Well, take a look at a case we filed in Virginia about 2 years ago. And we struck down a practice by the Virginia Department of Elections. Actually, it was 4 years ago. Time flies. And they were accepting ballots late with no postmarks, right? Like they have a statute that says it has to be postmarked by election day. The Virginia Department of Elections just dispensed with that law, like by edict. So we sued them. I actually argued the case. It was kind of fun. And you're not going to believe this, Victoria. The position of the Virginia Attorney General's office was, oh, those laws are quaint little antiquated things. That's literally what they were arguing in their briefing, that's just a relic from a bygone era. Elections are way more complicated now, so we have to suspend the law. That is absolutely what Virginia was arguing. And thankfully, the Public Interest Legal Foundation won that.
I was going to say that's before Jason Miyares, I imagine, because I imagine he would have been on the other side of that. Of course, now you've got the guy who likes to kill Republicans as the Attorney General of the state of Virginia, so the Commonwealth of Virginia. So good luck with that. Good luck with that. Oh, okay, so Now, so what is next in the pipeline? How impactful? Let's say that the Supreme Court does say no, postmarks don't count. Election day is election day, and how big would that be? How would that change things?
Well, look, there's no silver bullet in election litigation. Let's just remember that. A lot of people think if you just do one thing, the sun will rise. But it's not like that. And would be a very good thing. It'd be particularly good in places like Virginia. I'm trying to think who else. I mean, Mississippi, whatever, Illinois, states that accept ballots late, it'll make a difference. But not all states accept ballots late.
Right.
It's not,
Right.
it's not a national difference.
Yeah, it's these states: California, Colorado, District of Columbia, Hawaii, Nevada, and Oregon. Of course, all the really super blue, crazy towns.
I'm surprised it doesn't include, your list doesn't have North Dakota or Mississippi.
Yeah, that's weird. You're right.
Yeah, the list must be a little bit off because
Yeah, it was from a liberal agency.
But take a look at Nevada. There's a great example. Adam Laxalt would be in the Senate right now if it weren't for mail ballots arriving late. So, you ask what a difference it'll make. Well, I can tell you one person who is a great guy who should be in the U.S. Senate and is not because of this issue.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So what's next in the pipeline? Do we have more mail-in ballot cases coming forward? And what's the timeline on those?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the mail-in ballot cases, this is going to heavily resolve the delay issue. States are free to do mail ballots, right? Remember, the Constitution gives states the power to set their own election rules.
Yeah.
And that's how the founders wanted it because it promotes liberty. It promotes decentralization.
Yes.
And that's a good thing. And
right.
If some knucklehead state like Nevada wants to develop the dumbest possible election system, that's up to the people of Nevada. Go vote out your state legislature. But that's exactly how the founders designed the country.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, Constitution says here's election day, and also says states you have to run the elections. Now, I know that the Trump administration has been talking about making sure that the federal aspect of the election is held on election day, maybe even a vote in person kind of a thing. Can they do that?
Probably not. I mean, like I said, the states are given the power in the Constitution to decide how to run it. Like it's not a federal issue, and that's by design because the founders saw what happened in places like England with centralized authority. They hated it. They didn't want it. And so the Constitution gives states the power to do that. Yeah, you could pass an act of Congress, but I don't think this is what they're talking about. But you could pass an act of Congress to ban all mail voting. I think that would be stupid because the next Democrats are going to pass an act of Congress to say no voter ID. So you don't want Congress playing in the sandbox because I see how things change. And worse, here's the worst part, Victoria. If they pass an act of Congress that said no mail voting, who enforces that? It's the Justice Department. And I used to work there. And I know what the attitude of the DOJ lawyers will be in 6 years on enforcing those federal laws that we think are good. They won't enforce them because it's exactly what happened with voter roll cleanup laws. I wrote a whole book about this. It's called Injustice. That when I was at the DOJ, the Obama political leaders came down to the office and said, we're not going to enforce these federal laws anymore. It's literally what was said, and no one disputes it. So I see what happens with federal laws when they meet up with DOJ lawyers who are on the left. They just don't get enforced.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I understand. I have one more thing to ask you. It's not on this topic per se, but I did recently speak with the Election Integrity Project California head, and I know you've had some dealings with them before. And I wanted you to see this photo because I've been thinking about doing a story about it, and I wanted to get a perspective on what this means to you in terms of election integrity. Here it is. This is a list of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who have now had their country of origin changed from, let's see, Afghanistan and, Bahrain and even states, Indiana, they've all been changed in the California voter rolls to reflect that they were born in California. What does that mean?
Well, curious. Maybe something, maybe nothing. I'm familiar with the California voter registration database, and it does have a place of birth entry.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen them where it says Mexico. If this would be perfect, I'm going to give you two possible scenarios to explain this. One bad, one good. The good one.
Okay.
They've since naturalized, and in order to make the database more relevant, because once you naturalize, it doesn't matter where you're born,
Sure.
right?
Mm-hmm.
They've just changed it to California or the United States to
Mm-hmm.
reflect that naturalization event. I would have no problem with that. I mean, it's
Sure.
a dumb thing to keep the column, the entry window, but whatever. I will tell you that we got voter roll applications that said place of birth Mexico, and the person said they weren't a U.S. citizen. And we viewed the presence of the word Mexico in the database to be a flag that should alert you to their citizenship proof when they register. So that's the not bad version. The bad version is that they just did this willy-nilly to clear the path for registration. I will tell you, if I was in a casino, knowing how California operates, I would probably put most of my chips on good explanation. But that's not to say bad might not spin on the wheel. But that's just my first glance at this.
Okay. I wanted to find out from you and just
Yeah,
find out if there was another way to look at it, because I don't know everything I see. It looks hinky, but what does that mean? I don't know.
Yeah, so the problem, Victoria, in the space is, and I don't know what California IP, they've been in this game probably longer than just about anybody.
Mm-hmm.
The problem in the space is that some people will see this and immediately run to the only bad explanation.
Exactly.
And they'll get whipped up and, more proof of fraud. Instead of asking the question, let's figure out why this happened, they just assume that it's bad. And that's a toxic reaction.
Yes.
It leads to people making claims that, by the way, judges, if this were to be litigated, start to not take the whole movement seriously.
Yeah.
That's the big risk.
Yeah. Like I say, I'm glad I ran it by you, because I thought, I don't know what that means. What does it mean? Well, listen, J. Christian Adams, thank you so much. This is your last year on the Federal Civil Rights Commission, right? Or are you already off, or is it? Are you done?
Well, my term ends December 5. There hasn't been any reappointments of anybody. So if there are no reappointments, it's going to be a 4-0 Democratic commission, which will be a very unpleasant experience for the country.
I would like to ask, to whom would you ask, or of whom would you ask, if this is going to happen?
Well, I know the answer to that question. Yeah, I know the answer to that question. So it's just the process, and the government shutdown hasn't helped any on this, because the people who are fixing the issue for next year are staying at home right now.
Oh, that's helpful.
Well, if your presidential personnel office is not at work, then there's no presidential personnel picks.
What? They haven't been working? I mean, I know they're not getting paid, but they're going to get paid now.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
mission accomplished by the Democrats, I guess. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh, that's one of the big problems of the shutdown, is the people aren't getting hired to do, that are good people. That's one of the sideshows.
One more thing, because you have worked at the DOJ, and of course now we're hearing, there's so few people there to do all this work. Understandably, you want to get rid of a bunch of the bad actors. So to what extent do you think that they're doing things efficiently over there?
Oh, none. There's no. I mean, it depends on what division.
Yeah.
But it's true. I mean, they're down to like 30 prosecutors in the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C. And there's no crime in D.C., right?
Right.
And the problem is, you can't hire anybody when there's a government shutdown. So very little is getting done. And in some ways, that's good. Now, maybe not for criminal prosecutions, it's good, but very little is getting done at the DOJ because of the manpower shortages in great measure, and the inability to fill those slots now.
Okay. Well, thank you for your
Sure.
unvarnished responses. J. Christian Adams, he is the President and General Counsel of the Public Interest Legal Foundation, and they do exclusively election work. Thank you so much for coming again on the Adult in the Room podcast.
Thanks, Victoria.
Have a great day.